He's a deep threat, but it's not necessarily about just development. He's got to be healthy.
I'll say for me, I'm going to do an offensive player and a defensive player here for the University of Tennessee, Matt Green. For offense, I think it's Ramel Keyton. I think Ramel has still been here for a really long time, former 4-star. Brew McCoy is out this spring for the Vols. He'll be fine. He'll be the number one option come this fall. He spent a lot of time with Joe Milton. Like, he was on the second team. He was the fourth or fifth guy for the majority of his time here in Tennessee. He's never really been that consistent go-to guy. He had a lot of big catches for Tennessee this past year. A big one against Alabama and a big one against Florida. Like, he's got great hands. He's gotten a lot bigger. He's someone reliable. He's not flashy. He's become a good vocal leader for that wide receiver room with Cedric Tillman being gone, with Jalen Hyatt being gone. Someone had to step up. I think it's going to be a big year for Ramel. I think he and Joe Milton are going to have some really good chemistry. I obviously think Squirrel is going to have the best year of anyone in that room. Squirrel is just, he and Joe started off with Squirrel as a true freshman, and his track speed, a little guy, 5'8", so it's a little bit different than Jalen, but dude's going to be open a lot, and I think Joe and him will connect early and often. But I think Ramel is going to be the safety net kind of that Joe is just most comfortable with in this offense, because he's older, because he's a big target, because he has great hands, and he just seems to always find the ball in important moments. So I think he's going to have an opportunity to start and be one of the main three receivers, and then Dante Thornton kind of cycling in and out from that outside spot and in the slot with Squirrel to relieve those guys. But I think Ramel is actually a name to watch for Tennessee this fall. I would not be surprised if he breaks out and is a really, really good player, consistent player for Tennessee. Who's been around a long time, and he could have transferred, and he's stuck it out, and I think he's going to have a big final opportunity here in Knoxville. The defensive side was a little bit more difficult because I think it's going to be a lot of different guys, and there's just been so much turnover on that front, and they spent the majority of this class, the 2023 cycle, bringing in defensive guys who are probably going to play, at least get some snaps and some more impact transfers here. But I think Roman Harrison at the Leo spot, he was compared. I went back and I was like, what was his 2.47? Because he was a Jeremy Pruitt guy. And I went back through, and he's a 4-star, and he's been always the third or fourth edge guy coming in and out of the rotation. And he's good. Like, he's never been great. He's not, but he's just a rock. Like, that dude is just all muscle, and he's always in the upright position. And you're like, hey, you could see it maybe if he can put it all together and a little bit longer in the system. And Courtney Upshaw was the comp for him coming out of high school. And obviously Courtney Upshaw, good pro, was successful at Alabama. I think he's going to have the opportunity to start on one side. Joshua Joseph and James Pierce are going to get a lot of rotation. Rodney Garner loves rotating the defensive line, but I think Roman's going to start on one side, and I would not be surprised if he makes the leap and is a pretty solid sack guy for Tennessee. I think he's due to break out. He's been in the system for a long time, and he's got a lot of pressure behind him because this is the most amount of talent Tennessee's had on the defensive line since he's been there. So he's going to be pushed by a lot of talented young guys and 4- and 5-star kids who are coming in, pushing these older 4-stars like Roman. So those are my two that I think are going to pop, who've been in the program a long time, that I think Tennessee fans may have forgotten about a little bit.
Well, we shall see what happens, sir. So you think that's going to be one of the starters at receiver, Keyton, so Thornton? Are you expecting Thornton to start the transfer?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think Thornton is going to have to ease into it. I think he's going to be more because he's not like a Jalen or like it was so clean last year. It was like Brew was on the outside, Jalen's the prototypical slot guy, and Cedric Tillman's the prototypical number one guy. That's just not how it's going to be this year. I think it's going to be Brewitt replacing Tillman, but Dante can play in the slot or out wide. So it's just because he's more versatile, I think they're going to want old reliable on one side with Ramel, and then sub in Dante Thornton at the slot sometimes, on the outside sometimes, depending on matchups and stuff like that. So no, I don't think Dante Thornton starts. If I had to guess, the week 1 against Virginia starting 3 receivers is Ramel, Squirrel, and Brew, my guess.
Fair enough.
What's not fair, though, Matt Green, Kirby Smart. had something to say, and this one on Twitter. And I saw this, and a lot of Twitter folks got up in arms over this one. Friend of the pod, Graham Coffey, had a take that I did not agree with, that I'm not going to personally shout out here. Friend of the pod, though, I just didn't agree with the take. And Logan Booker, also friend of the pod, had some fun at this. Quote, in our system, because some systems take all the pressure off the quarterback and they just go really fast, we don't do that. We don't know who he was talking about. Like, it could have just been a general statement on tempo in college football, which is probably what it was, because tempo is becoming such a trendy thing for teams to do, to pick up the pace. I saw this, and Georgia fans love pointing out, like, what happened in Athens. And they were like, oh, but the rain and this, that, and the other. And if it was a neutral site, Georgia fans love the neutral site stuff.
No, the Tennessee fans are the ones that have talked about.
Well, no, Georgia fans bring it up a lot now. They bring it up.
Oh yeah, to troll.
Yes,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
a common troll tactic from Georgia fans now. Like, if it was a neutral site, then maybe things are good. So here's the thing. I don't know if that's who Kirby was talking about. One of the things that's just simply not true about Tennessee is, like, the offense, just because it is QB friendly. Like, I think it's stat friendly, but not necessarily QB friendly, if that makes sense. Where you're still having to make extremely quick decisions. You have to be extremely decisive when you're looking on that side of the field. What's open, what's not. It's pre-snap reads are incredibly important. You need to know your matchups. You're having to throw the ball. Like, it's a lot of deep shots. It's a lot of attacking the hashes. Like, you're out there. Like, it's a tough spot. Like, not everyone can play in the system. Not everyone is equipped to do what Josh Heupel asks of his guys, because you're stretching the field. You're making a lot of quick decisions. You have to get out of the pocket if you need to. Like, because the tempo is so fast, you have to know exactly what you're doing over and over and over again. You have to have a full, exquisite command of exactly what you're supposed to do and where things need to go and how to get there, get everyone up to the line, get everyone moving, get the right matchups, know what the defense is showing you, this, that, and the other. I understand, like, certain defenses, like, they know what they can and can't play with quarters and different things in the back end, but, like, it's not easy. Like, it's just not as easy as I think a lot of folks.
Well, playing quarterback is never easy, so it's obviously still going to be difficult. But I mean, there's a reason these are called quarterback-friendly offenses, because there are aspects to it that are more simple. That we've seen plenty of teams throughout the last decade, of college football that don't have very good, talented, quote-unquote, quarterbacks, but yet he puts up monster numbers because it's a scheme that's designed for the quarterback to make easy reads and, you know, just make just one read and go, or it's just some, whatever the case may be. There's all kinds of different systems, but so it's not like taking a shot at. Also, to begin with, I don't think this was taking a shot at Tennessee. Like, I think that's like a reach for a lot of people to just say, like, oh, Kirby's talking about Tennessee. Like, Georgia just had a scrimmage in the spring, and he's being asked about the quarterback competition and, like, what's important to him in the quarterback, and it's about decision making and then explaining what the quarterback does in their system. It's not as simple as other systems that just go fast. Like, so for Tennessee fans to, like, oh, Kirby throwing shade or whatever he's doing, like, I just thought that was a total reach. But it's not like to be disrespectful, but I think it is just saying, like, our quarterback is expected to do X, Y, Z. It might be a little more complicated than another system. And that's the things that we focus on as coaches that maybe, like, the media or fans don't pay the close attention to.
Well, it's also just that, like, pressure is just so relative. It's like, well, Stetson didn't have much pressure the majority of the year. Like, he had all time. You can go back and watch that Oregon tape. That man could have had a picnic in the backfield where he had, like, there's different reasons for pressure. It's like you could have a really bad system, but if your offensive line's really good, then that's a pretty QB friendly system to be in when you have a great offensive line. Like, Notre Dame has been putting out first round offensive tackles, and just have blocked well for years. They've given their guys opportunities. It's just the numbers haven't been there, and everything around it has not worked and been electric and efficient and what you want to see. But, like, quarterbacks aren't running for their lives. Like, it's not a pressure cooker back there week over week. It's just not good. Those are two different things. So I think it's there's more nuance, and I think it's just also the off season that we're all just reaching for stuff like that. It's like a lot of folks got on, they're like, oh, we can turn this into a whole Tennessee versus Georgia kerfuffle. When, like you said, I don't think he was talking about Tennessee in particular, but
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I do think it's tough because it's like you hired Todd Monken, and I think people forget this, where it's like, what was Todd Monken's narrative before he came into Georgia, right? Like, he was an air raid guy. Like, you go back through the Southern Miss and Tampa, like, it's throw. Yeah, like, that was kind of what he was. And I think a lot of Georgia fans were like, okay, now we're going completely the other way. We're going from running way too much and being way too old school to, like, are we just going to pass the ball on the 1 yard line?
I don't want to toot my own horn over here, but I feel like I knew that Georgia was never going to be an air raid offense. It's just like, maybe we're just going to have a better offensive coordinator and play caller now. Like, and that's might be what he wants to do. But you're an idiot if you walk into University of Georgia's locker room and see the offensive linemen and see the running backs and see the tight ends and be like, we should just throw the ball every play. Like, you're built to run the ball too. Maybe you're just going to improve the passing game, so when you do throw, it's now more effective. And that's basically what Todd Monken did. Like, Georgia never lost their identity of wanting to be a balanced team. You know what I mean? Regardless of how many attempts Stetson Bennett had as a passer.
I agree. And look, Tennessee fans and Georgia fans are going to be at each other's necks for the foreseeable future. Like, this is now the battle. And I feel kind of bad that, like, the East is going away when these two are really close, right? Like, it kind of sucks that we're not going to see this play out over the next 3 years. And if Tennessee can actually dethrone them and win the East one of these years.
Because that was the only thing that the silver lining of changing the Auburn game, because as a Georgia fan, it's like Auburn in early mid-November, it's like that's when you play Auburn. So swapping that, but it being Tennessee, so you still, and that, like, kind of becoming a potential, like, perennial SEC East championship type of game down the stretch of the season, like, that's a pretty cool aspect of that game. And it's like, we're going to get that scenario for like 2 seasons, and then it's going to be over. Assuming Tennessee is back in that position again next year. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. But
they should be.
They definitely should be. But it's definitely funny how people, like, I feel like when it was Dan Mullen and, like, Georgia was ahead of Florida, it's like he would say these little comments that's like, okay, he's obviously talking about Georgia. Like, how long has it been since they won a championship? Whatever, like, throwing the attendance numbers out there and whatnot. It's like Kirby. I remember someone did it last year when after the Missouri game, he's like in the post game conference, he's like, it's tough to win on the road in this league. And then someone's like, oh, Kirby says it's tougher to win in the SEC than any other conference. It's like, no, he just coaches in the SEC, and he says it's tough to win on the road in the SEC. It's not some sort of, like, propaganda or some sort of agenda he's playing. It's like, no, it's hard to go on the road and win in the conference that I play in. So, people want to run with and read between the lines, but I think, this is really just him talking about the quarterback competition, which is the biggest story of Georgia of spring for sure.
I think we could squash all this by Georgia fans just staying out of the Tennessee offense slander business. That's all you got to do, because it's like, you shut them down in Athens. That's great. Tennessee still finished with the number 1 offense in college football. They still, I don't know if you saw this, Jalen Hyatt had 5 touchdown receptions against Alabama. If you look at the rest of the season for Alabama, this was not a bad defense. Like, Will Anderson still wreaked havoc. He didn't do a thing in that game. Donnell Wright completely shut him down. Like, it's working. I think it's such a reach to be like, well, hold on, we're the back-to-back national champions, so we're going to be, like, just kind of poo-pooing, like, it's not a real offense, this, that, and the other, like, they can't do this, they can't do that, like, it's not real, this is all fake, like, until you come with the big dogs. It's like, man, Tennessee did this against everybody. Like, even the South Carolina loss, like, Tennessee was moving
everybody
the ball
but
and
Georgia
over and again, which is
2
fine.
years in a row too. That offense was pretty great in 2021.
National champion. If that is the only team in the entire country that has figured out your offense early in the last 2 years and has been able to slow you down are the back-to-back national champions, something right.
Of course, but the people that have the bragging rights to talk shit are those fans. So
yeah, I just am like,
they're the only ones that can, really.
I know. I'm like, all right, y'all are really like, the jokes. I'm like, do you want
and
people to
South
be less
Carolina
efficient?
fans? They can at least talk about y'all's defense.
They can talk about the defense, but the yards per play for Tennessee's offense, especially before Hendon goes down, they were not having trouble moving the ball.
That game was already decided when Hendon went down. Let's be honest. It was it was a prayer. I don't know what the exact situation was. Obviously, fumbling on like your own 10-yard line definitely made it over. But they were down 2 touchdowns like fourth quarter.
Easy. That's what I'm saying. That's not a big deal for the number one offense. Like
it wasn't looking good. Not when you couldn't stop them.
I'm not disagreeing. It wasn't.
We don't need to rehash the South Carolina. We can. If you need to talk about it, I'm here though.
I appreciate that, Matt Green. It felt genuine. The Big Ten East revisited. Our series continues on, Matt Green. I'm glad these divisions are going away because when I was going back through this today, I'm like, how did this happen? Like you look at the two sides here, and it's just so lopsided. It's really kind of a joke, and it's going to help the Marylands of the world a lot. And Greg McElroy made this point on Always College Football this week that I thought was fascinating, and I really consider where it's like, if you're a fan of any of these other schools in the Big League, you're like, oh, well, we can never get back to, we're never making the Big Ten title game without divisions, right? You're like, oh, Purdue's out of everyone getting back, or Northwestern, or whoever. And he's like, that's not what you need to be worried about, because when the CFP expands to 12, it might behoove you. Like your goal does not need to be like we have to make the conference championship game. That will not be as big of a deal. If you go 9-3 or 10-2 overall, and you have a good schedule, the offense is good, this, that, and the other. You have a couple, 1 or 2 key wins within the conference, even if you don't make the conference title game. You're still in good shape to make the CFP, and that's where the attention lies. So I think you have a better path.
I don't see it that way though. I don't think you're going to reward a team that didn't play in the conference championship over a team that lost in the conference championship. I think if you're weighing the resume, it's like whatever Purdue did to beat Illinois, in the Big Ten West, it's like that still goes into their resume. The fact they lost to Michigan the next week, it's like that's kind of a moot point at that point. It's like they already established that they're better than Illinois. Like I always hated when the BCS would do that. It's like I know like one year it was when Georgia beat Florida 2012 and then lost the SEC championship. Now they're ranked like 6th or something. And then Florida, who didn't go to the SEC championship, now goes to the Sugar Bowl, which is like a better bowl.